The wolf was dying. His eyes, clouded with an icy film, no longer saw the January sun. His front paws, locked in a death grip on the edge of the ice hole, were stiff with cramps. His hind legs had long disappeared beneath the water. The gray fur on his scruff was covered in frost, turning into a frozen crust. He no longer struggled, he was simply waiting. The animal didn't hear the crunch of snow under heavy footsteps, didn't smell the human approaching, didn't flinch when a hand touched his neck. "Still alive, Drifter," croaked a stranger's voice. The wolf didn't respond. He had no strength left. Before we begin, right where you're from, like and subscribe, and watch until the end. Let's begin. Grigory Sobolev was walking along the frozen river, silently cursing his decision to take a shortcut. The residents of Medvedzy Log had been crossing the icy shortcut for decades in winter, but this year the ice had come late. Beneath his feet, ominous cracks echoed, and each step thudded with a dull, hollow sound. "Just one more kilometer," the hunter encouraged himself, "then it'll get thicker." Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a dark spot ahead, an ice hole. And in it, something large. Later, sitting by the blazing stove in his house on the edge of the taiga, Grigory would ask himself again and again, "Why did I run? Why did I rush to save something without even seeing what it was? I could have fallen in two. I could have died and left Lyoshka an orphan." But at that moment, he didn't think, he just ran. As he got closer, Sobolev froze. A mature wolf's face was staring back at him, or rather, not staring, the predator's eyes were closed. Half his body was underwater, only the front paws still clinging to the ice. "What am I supposed to do with you?" Grigory asked quietly. Hunting instinct said, "Leave him. It's a wolf, your enemy." How many sheep had he slaughtered in the village? How many dogs had he torn apart? Let him drown. But something about it felt wrong, against nature itself. Sobolev carefully dropped to his knees, balancing on the thin ice, and began to chisel away the frozen crust clinging to the animal's body. The ice had fused tightly to the fur. Grigory worked silently, recalling his grandfather's words, "A taiga man takes only what he needs to live, no more, and respects other life, even if it's a wolf's." When the last chunk of ice was chipped away, Grigory gripped the animal by its front legs and pulled. Heavy, easily 80 kilograms, but the hunter managed to drag the body onto thicker ice. The wolf wasn't breathing, or barely. Sobolev pulled a small flashlight from his pocket, pried open one of the wolf's eyes, and shone a light inside. The pupil contracted. "Still alive, Drifter," Grigory exhaled. "Now what? Just leave you here?" The wolf didn't respond. Sobolev made a decision that would change his life. He hoisted the enormous, wet body onto his shoulders and began trudging toward the shore. "I've gone mad," he muttered under his breath. "Completely mad, carrying a wolf on my back. What if he wakes up? What if he attacks?" The burden was heavy. With each step, his legs felt like lead. Water streamed from the wolf's fur down Grigory's back, instantly freezing into icy trails. The 3 kilometers to the hamlet of Medvedzy Log felt like an eternity. When his old wooden house finally appeared among the snow-covered firs, Grigory could no longer feel his hands or feet. His 3 hunting lycus, Nida, Blizzard, and Storm, sensed the stranger from afar. Their barking echoed through the forest. "Quiet," Grigory rasped, closing the gate with his foot. His dogs obediently fell silent but sniffed the air tensely, hairs bristling on their backs. Grigory pushed open the door and carried his find inside. The gray one didn't yet know he had just been given a name. he drifted in a fog between life and death. Through the haze came the scent of a human, the sensation of warm water on his paws, the sound of an unfamiliar voice. When he finally opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a human face, too close for a wild animal. The wolf tried to leap up, but his hind legs wouldn't obey. He bared his teeth, trying to look threatening, but not even a growl came out, just a faint whimper. "So, you're awake," the man said, backing away. "You scared me, Gray." The wolf didn't understand the words, but the tone was calm, no smell of fear or aggression. Just wariness and curiosity. "Here, food for you." The man slid a bowl with something meaty inside. The smell hit the wolf's nostrils, and his stomach twisted with hunger. He tried to crawl toward the bowl, but his body wouldn't move. The man gently pushed it closer. "Eat. Don't be afraid. We'll figure out your back later." Grigory Sobolev had never considered himself a savior of wild animals. His grandfather and father were hunters, and he became one too the moment he learned to hold a rifle. The Sobolevs always lived by taiga law, taking only what they needed from the forest, with care and respect. Sitting by the stove, watching the sleeping wolf, Grigory remembered how his lonely life in the taiga began. It was during the harsh 1990s. The logging company where he worked shut down. People were thrown out like useless junk. His wife, Tatiana, initially endured his endless job searches and long hunting trips to feed the family. But eventually, she had enough. "We can't live like this, Grisha," she told him one night. "Lyosha is growing up, he'll be in school soon. And what do we have? No money, no future." "We'll manage," he argued. "We're not starving, right?" "You don't understand," Tatiana's voice trembled with tears. "It's not about bread. I'm scared. Scared you'll vanish in the forest. That Lyosha will grow up without a father." He had no reply. A month later, she filed for divorce and took 5-year-old Alexei to her mother's in the city. Grigory didn't blame her, a city girl, a teacher. How could she understand taiga life? To the Sobolevs, the forest wasn't the enemy, it was home. He left them the apartment in town and returned to the hamlet, to his grandfather's house. There, among ancient trees, he finally felt at peace. No more pretending, no more shame for his wildness, what Tatiana used to call it. But now he saw Lyosha only in summer. The boy came happily for vacations, but in winter, "I can't let him go," his ex-wife would say. "It's -40 in December. What if he gets sick? What if something happens to him out there?" Grigory would agree. What could he say? He was afraid too. That year Lyosha turned 14. He called from the city, telling his father about school, about friends. Then one day he said, "Dad, I'm coming to you for winter break. Mom's going away with Uncle Kostya, so I'll be at Grandma's, and from there, to you." Grigory listened, barely believing. Finally they would spend a real winter together, a real father-son time. But that would come later. Right now, in front of him lay an injured wolf he had, for some reason, decided to save. A month passed. Gray the wolf slowly adjusted to human life. He no longer bared his teeth at Grigory, calmly took food from his hands, but his hind legs still didn't work. "Looks like you're staying with me for a while," Sobolev said one day, sitting beside him. "I should move you to the porch. Cold, sure, but there's more space. And my dogs won't smell you as much." He spoke to the wolf like a person. At first, he felt awkward about the habit, but then realized no one would know. And Gray, it seemed, understood. He watched with alert yellow eyes, head tilted. That evening, someone knocked at the door, a rare event in the secluded hamlet of Medvezy Log. On the porch stood the local constable, Sergei Petrovich Krulov, an aging, stocky man with a face always red from frost. "Evening, Sobolev," he said, shaking hands. "Let me in." Grigory silently stepped aside. "Tea." "Wouldn't mind." They sat at the table drinking strong tea with old rusks, the only food Grigory had. He waited to hear why the constable had come. "Listen, Sobolev," Krulov finally began, tapping the table with his fingers. "Rumor has it you picked up a wolf." Grigory tensed. "Yeah. Half dead. He was drowning in a hole in the ice." "So what? You planning to keep him?" "Like a dog. For now. He needs time to recover. Then we'll see." The constable shook his head. "It's a wild animal, Sobolev, not a toy. He could cause trouble." "He can't even walk," Grigory replied. "Listen here," Krulov leaned in. 3 sheep were killed in Asanovka last week. Folks say a wolf pack's nearby. Maybe he's one of them. Maybe, Grigory didn't argue. But what does that matter? He was freezing in the ice. I pulled him out. What, should I have let him die? Krulov sighed. That's not the issue. People talk. Brogin, the gamekeeper, has it in for you. Says you poach on his land. Grigory smirked. I've got all the right licenses. The traps were set up where they were supposed to be. I know, the district officer waved dismissively, but Brogin has connections in the region. Listen, Sobolev, if he finds out about the wolf, there'll be trouble. He'll say you're keeping it for bait or something worse. You know how it is around here, there's an order to shoot wolves on sight. Grigory fell into thought. What was there to say? The officer was right, in these parts, a wolf was an outlaw. There was a reward for its head and it was a problem for everyone. You won't turn me in, will you? He asked quietly. Krulov gave him a long look. You're a fool, Sobolev. But to hell with it, I won't turn you in. Just remember, if anything happens, I knew nothing. After the officer left, Grigory sat by the stove for a long time, trying to decide what to do with the wolf. Release him in the spring? But would he survive till then? And what about Brogin the ranger? That scoundrel, if he found out, there'd be no avoiding trouble. Alexei arrived at the end of March, tall, thin, with his father's gray eyes and a stubborn chin. Dad, he shouted, hugging Grigory. I thought I wasn't going to make it, the bus broke down halfway. You'd have walked if needed, his father smiled. A real Sobolev should know how to move through the taiga. I would have walked, Alexei said seriously. But the driver wouldn't let me. Said the bears were waking up. Nonsense, Grigory waved it off. Still too early, the snow hasn't melted. They entered the house, and Alexei froze in the doorway. Curled up in a huge gray ball by the stove was a wolf. Sensing a stranger, the wolf lifted his head and sniffed the air cautiously. Dad, that's, Alexei couldn't find the words. A wolf, Grigory said calmly. I call him Gray. Pulled him out of a polina in winter. Would have died otherwise. A real wolf. Alexei was incredulous. Not a toy, Grigory smirked. But don't get too close just yet. He doesn't like strangers. But something surprising happened. Gray, usually wary of newcomers, looked at the boy calmly and even wagged his tail slightly, as if experimenting with a new movement. Look at that, Grigory said in amazement. He recognizes you, must sense our blood. That evening, they sat long by the stove. Grigory told his son stories about hunting, the taiga trails, and animal habits. Gray lay nearby, occasionally lifting his head at unfamiliar sounds from outside. "Can he walk?" Alexei asked, nodding toward the wolf. "Not well yet," his father sighed. "Must have spent too long in the icy water. His hind legs won't obey. He tries to get up but falls. Maybe we can massage him?" Alexei suggested suddenly. "I saw on TV they do that for dogs with paralysis." Grigory looked doubtfully at the wolf. "You think he'll let you?" "Let's try," Alexei shrugged. To Grigory's surprise, Gray lay calmly while the boy gently kneaded his back legs, only occasionally turning his head and watching Alexei with yellow eyes. "You two have a strange connection," Grigory noted. "I've been with him for a month, and he barely tolerates me. But he took to you right away." "I think he likes me," Alexei smiled. "Right, Gray?" The wolf let out a quiet sound, not a growl, not a whine, something in between. Almost like a response. Spring in the taiga doesn't come all at once. At first, timidly, icicles dripping, snow melting on southern slopes, birds returning. Then suddenly, fiercely, ice breaking on the rivers, avalanches from the mountains. The land fills with meltwater, with life, with the promise of warmth. Every day, Gray grew stronger. Alexei kept working with him, massaging his legs, helping him stand and take a few steps. At first, the wolf collapsed after the first move. But soon he made it to the door. Within a week, he was limping around the veranda, hugging the walls. "Look, Dad." Alexei rejoiced. "He's really walking." Grigory smiled at his son. Who would have thought a city boy could get so attached to a wild animal, and the animal to him? One evening, Alexei asked, "Dad, what'll happen to Gray when he's completely recovered?" Grigory thought for a moment. He asked himself that question every day. "We'll let him go," he finally said. "His place is in the forest, not with people. He's wild, wolf's blood." Alexei nodded, but Grigory could see the answer didn't sit well with his son. "You thought we'd keep him forever?" he asked. "I don't know," Alexei shrugged. "Maybe he'll want to stay." "No, son," Grigory shook his head. "A wolf won't live with people. He wasn't made for that. And it's dangerous too." "He's not dangerous," Alexei protested. "He's kind." "He's kind, now," Grigory agreed. "But what happens when his blood stirs? When he senses a pack or a mate?" "No, Lyoshka, nature will take its course. The forest is his home." That night, Alexei couldn't sleep. He lay on the old sofa, listening to Gray whimper in his sleep. Would they really have to part? And in spring, he would go back to the city, to his mother, to school, to ordinary life. No taiga, no father, no wolf with understanding eyes. "I don't want to go," he whispered into the dark. In early April, the Studianaya River began to thaw. Huge ice floes crashed against the banks, overturning and piling on each other. The sight was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Grigory and Alexei stood on the high bank, watching the ice drift. Gray sat beside them, sniffing the spring air full of new scents. He was recovering surprisingly fast, already walking confidently around the yard, even trying to run. He still limped, but his movements grew steadier every day. "He'll leave soon," Grigory said, nodding toward the wolf. "Maybe he won't," Alexei replied hopefully. "He's happy with us." "He'll leave," his father repeated firmly. "And that's how it should be. And you'll soon go back to the city, spring break's almost over." Alexei said nothing. He didn't want to talk about leaving. Didn't want to think about being apart from his father, the taiga, this freedom that was so lacking in the city. "Dad," he finally said, "can I stay with you?" "For good." Grigory slowly turned to his son. "What about school?" "Your mom." "I'll go to school here," Alexei said quickly. "In Asanovka. They have one. And Mom, she's with Uncle Kostya now. They don't really care about me." "Don't say such nonsense," Grigory frowned. "Your mother loves you. She's right to keep you in the city, there you have opportunities, education. What is there here? Forest and hunting? I like it here." Alexei cried. "I feel better here than in the city." His father looked at him closely. In his eyes, Alexei saw something new, understanding, pride, and sadness. "Your Sobolev blood," Grigory said softly. "It pulls you to the land, to the forest, like it does me, like it did all of us." He paused, watching the ice drift. "I'll talk to your mother. But I can't promise anything." That was enough. Alexei hadn't dared hope for more. They didn't notice the old UAZ pulling up to the bank. The door slammed, and a stocky man in a camouflage jacket appeared on the trail, Brajin, the district ranger. "Sobolev," he called, approaching. "There you are." Grigory instinctively stepped forward, shielding his son and the wolf. "What do you want, Brajin?" The ranger squinted, noticing gray. Well, he drawled. "So it's true, you've tamed a wolf." "Not tamed," Grigory replied calmly. "I'm nursing him. Pulled him out of a polinya." "Why?" Brajin's voice dripped with sarcasm. "A hunter rescuing a wolf? What a joke." "None of your business," Grigory snapped. "Not my business," the ranger's voice rose. "What about the livestock killings this winter in Asanovka? Maybe your pet helped with that?" "He couldn't have," Alexei cut in. "He couldn't even stand for 2 months." Brajin sneered at the boy. "Smart, like his father. But do you know, kid, there's an order to shoot any wolf on sight? They break the quarantine zone." "What zone?" Alexei didn't understand. "They keep wolves in the reserve," Grigory explained. "If they cross the border, they're considered a threat and must be shot." "Exactly," Brajin nodded. "So your wolf is legal prey. And keeping him is illegal." Gray growled softly, sensing the tension. His fur bristled. "See that?" Brajin grinned. "That wild blood, it doesn't go away. He'll tear you apart someday." Grigory placed a calming hand on the wolf's head. "Get out, Brajin. I'm not breaking any laws. I'll release him once he's recovered." "You'll release him," the ranger scoffed. "No, Sobolev. I'm reporting this. A commission will come, file a report, confiscate the wolf. Maybe slap a fine on you for illegal wildlife possession. You have no right." Alexei shouted. "He's injured. He can't survive alone." "Quiet, kid," Brajin cut him off. "Not your concern. I've got my orders." Grigory narrowed his eyes. "And at Vaska's winter camp? Do your orders cover the moose hides you stash there? Or the meat of that protected deer species?" Brajin turned pale. "What the hell are you talking about, Sobolev?" "What I heard. Think people don't know you poach under your badge." Brajin clenched his fists, stepped forward, but held himself back. "You'll regret this, Sobolev," he hissed. "We'll talk differently next time." He turned sharply and headed for his car. "What now, Dad?" Alexei asked quietly when the UAZ disappeared around the bend. Grigory stared after the ranger. We'll have to take Gray into the forest, let him get used to it. Maybe he'll find his own. Maybe he'll leave. But he's still too weak. We have no choice, son. Brajin won't back off. And if the commission shows up, we're finished. Tears welled in Alexei's eyes. I don't want to say goodbye. Grigory pulled his son close. That's how it is, Lyoshka. A wolf shouldn't live with people. It's against nature, his and ours. Gray, as if understanding what was being said, whined softly and pressed his nose into Alexei's side. The next morning was overcast. Low clouds clung to the tops of the fir trees, and the air smelled of rain. Grigory woke up early. He had to decide what to do about the ranger. Krulov had been right, Brajin would not back down. And if it reached the authorities? Sobolev had never in his life felt so confused. Had he broken the law by saving the wolf? Technically, yes. But was there any other way he could have acted? He stepped out onto the porch and breathed in the damp air. A dim dawn was breaking over the distant ridges in the east. A new day, new worries. He needed to drive to Asanovka for groceries, check the traps by the far creek, and then Grigory's thoughts were interrupted by a strange sound, something between a whimper and a growl. He turned around. Gray was sitting on the veranda's threshold, shifting uncertainly from paw to paw. His fur bristled and his ears were pinned back. "What is it, beast?" asked Sobolev, coming closer. The wolf raised his head, sniffing the air, and in his yellow eyes flickered a deep unease. Grigory tensed. Wolf instinct meant something serious. If Gray was anxious, it wasn't without reason. He went back inside and woke his son. "Lyoshka, get up." "What happened?" the boy mumbled sleepily. "I don't know yet. But Gray's restless." They quickly dressed and stepped into the yard. The dogs were anxious too, barking, whining, straining at their chains. "Someone's coming," Alexei guessed. "Looks like it," his father nodded. They listened tensely, eyes scanning the dense forest beyond the fence. Silence. Only the wind rustled in the treetops. Then came the sound of an engine, distant at first, barely audible, then closer, louder. A UAZ, Grigory identified. Brajin's back, and he's not alone. Gray growled low, crouching. Alexei placed a hand on his ruff. "Easy, boy, easy." "Lyoshka," Grigory said quickly, "take the wolf and head into the forest. Use the northern trail, go to the old winter hut. I'll hold them off. I'll catch up later. Go, quickly." The vehicle was already very close. Grigory pushed his son. "Run." Lyoshka nodded and crouched beside the wolf. "Gray, let's go." To Grigory's surprise, the wolf obediently limped after the boy, but moved confidently. They slipped behind the outbuildings and onto a narrow path leading deep into the taiga. Meanwhile, the battered UAZ with "forest protection" stenciled on the side was already pulling into the yard. Lyoshka ran without looking back, heart pounding in his throat. Branches whipped his face, and wet earth squelched beneath his boots. "Come on, Gray." The wolf kept up despite his limp, moving smoothly, as if remembering old skills. Unlike Lyoshka, he barely made a sound, while the boy constantly snapped twigs and stumbled over roots. The northern trail was an old hunter's path winding between marshes. Grigory's grandfather had once carved it out, and only the Sobolevs knew its turns and dangers. A stranger would be lost here in minutes. But Lyoshka remembered every tree, every landmark. His father had taught him, in the taiga, son, memory is your greatest weapon. Remember everything, your life depends on it. After 20 minutes of fast running, Alexei slowed to catch his breath and listened. No pursuit. Let's rest, Gray. The wolf looked at him with a sharp, almost human gaze, flicked his ears, and let out a quiet noise, half groan, half growl. You're right, it's too early to stop. Ahead lay a shallow basin filled with meltwater. Every spring, a small lake would form here, drying up by summer. We'll have to go around, Alexei muttered. But then Gray tensed. His hackles rose. He stared off to the side, sniffing. Lyoshka froze. What is it? A bear? Too early for them, but still, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement to the right and recognized the silhouette. Brajin, the boy whispered. How did he find us? The ranger was cutting across, walking like he knew exactly where they were going. He carried a shotgun. Alexei crouched, pulling Gray down by the fur. Quiet. Let's hide. They lay still in the thick underbrush. Brajin was very close now, muttering to himself and glancing around. I'll show you. Both of you Sobolevs. Saved a wolf, shamed me, Lyoshka's heart sank. The ranger had followed their tracks and figured out they were headed to the winter hut. When Brajin passed their hiding place, Gray suddenly leapt out onto the path, growling and baring his teeth. Brajin recoiled. Damn it! He raised his gun, but didn't get the chance to shoot. The wolf pounced, knocking him down. The rifle flew to the side. Gray, no! Lyoshka shouted, running out. But the wolf didn't attack. He stood over the fallen man, growling, flashing his teeth but not biting, as if warning him. Brajin lay on his back, staring in terror into the snarling jaws. Call him off, he stammered. Call him off. Gray, back, Alexei ordered softly. To his surprise, the wolf obeyed, slowly retreating without taking his eyes off the ranger. Get up, Lyoshka said, and go. We won't hurt you. Just leave us alone. Brajin got to his feet warily, squinting at the wolf. You don't get it, boy, he rasped. That animal's dangerous. He'll rip you apart the moment he gets hungry. No, he won't, Alexei answered firmly. He's a friend. He just saved me, as I saved him. This is madness, the ranger muttered, brushing dirt from his jacket. Fine, damn you. But I won't forgive your father. He embarrassed me in front of the higher-ups. That's your fault, Lyoshka said boldly. The poaching accusation, it's true. Brajin glared. None of your business, brat. He slung the shotgun over his shoulder. Take your beast and stay out of my way, or your father will regret it. The ranger turned and walked off, casting nervous glances at the wolf. Once he disappeared, Lyoshka exhaled in relief. You really scared him, Gray. The wolf looked at the boy as if smiling. His yellow eyes glowed with a strange, almost human understanding. Now, to the hut? Or back to Dad? Gray moved toward the house. Alexei nodded. You're right. We need to warn Dad about Brajin. When Lyoshka and the wolf returned to the farmstead, the UAZ was gone. Grigory stood on the porch, peering into the forest. Seeing his son, he sighed in relief. You're alive. Thank God. Dad, we ran into Brajin in the forest, Alexei blurted. He tracked us. I don't know what he was planning, but Gray scared him off. Grigory's face turned grim. I knew it. He wouldn't give up. Stubborn bastard. What happened here? Lyoshka asked. Who came? Inspectors from the district, his father said with a crooked smile. Supposedly checking for poaching. They searched everything, but Brogin didn't expect the senior inspector to be my old army buddy, Kolzaman. We served together in Afghanistan. So what now? Nothing, Grigory shrugged. They filed a report. No violations found. They left. Brogin must have snapped and went rogue. Good thing I sent you away. He knelt in front of the wolf, gently touched his snout. So, you protected the boy. Good job, Gray. The wolf whined softly, pressing into the man's hand. Over the past months, he had changed, become more trusting, calmer. Or maybe the people had changed. Still, he has to go back to the forest, Grigory said quietly. We can't keep him. Brogin won't let it go, and others will find out. I understand, Dad, Alexei agreed unexpectedly. I just got used to him. That happens, son. You grow attached to a wild animal, and then it's hard to say goodbye. But it's the right thing. A wolf belongs in the forest, a man in his home. Lyoshka nodded, wiping away an uninvited tear. When? Tomorrow, his father replied. At dawn. We'll take him deep into the northern ridges, there's a wolf pack there. Maybe they'll accept him. That night, Alexei barely slept. He lay listening to the wolf's soft breathing from the floor near his bed. Gray didn't sleep either, he'd lift his head now and then, meeting the boy's gaze. I don't want to say goodbye, Lyoshka whispered into the darkness. But it's better for you. You're wild. The wolf didn't reply, just stared with yellow eyes filled with ancient wisdom, as old as the taiga itself. The northern ridges greeted them with fog and drizzle. The path wound between boulders, climbing higher. Grigory led, pausing now and then to look around. Alexei followed, slightly behind. Gray stayed close to the boy, sometimes darting off to sniff things only he could sense. Far still? Lyoshka asked during a break by a small stream. 2 kilometers, his father replied. Then a pass. I've seen tracks there in winter. Alexei nodded silently, watching the wolf. Gray drank cautiously from the stream, ears twitching. In the forest, he looked different, no longer a rescued pet but a true predator. His movements were smoother, his eyes sharper, muscles rippling under his fur with every step. He was no longer the half-dead animal his father had once pulled from the ice. Now, a real wolf stood before them, strong, dangerous, and free. He's not ours anymore, Grigory said softly, as if reading his son's thoughts. Look how he's changed. Nature reclaims its own. I know, Lyoshka replied just as quietly. It's just hard. Feels like losing a friend. Because that's exactly what he is, his father nodded. An unusual friend, but a true one. And you helped him. Remember that. They continued. The trail grew steeper, the forest denser, the air rich with the scent of pine, damp earth, and melting snow. Suddenly Gray stopped, as if hitting an invisible barrier. His hackles rose, ears pressed back. What is it? Alexei asked warily. Grigory placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Quiet. He senses his kind. And sure enough, moments later, a long, drawn-out howl echoed from above. Then another. And a third. A whole chorus that sent shivers down their spines. Gray raised his head, sniffing. Something flickered in his yellow eyes, longing, joy, anxiety. Go, Grigory said quietly. They're calling you. The wolf looked at the humans, stepped toward Alexei, and nudged his hand with his snout. The boy dropped to his knees and hugged the thick neck. "Goodbye, Gray. Be careful. And thank you." The wolf whimpered softly, licked the boy's face, then stepped back and looked at Grigory. Grigory simply nodded. "Go." Gray turned around and trotted lightly up the slope. At the ridge, he paused, looked back one last time, and then disappeared into the juniper thickets. "That's it," Grigory exhaled and returned home. Alexei watched the wolf go, his heart tightening with a mix of sadness and joy, sadness from the parting, and joy from having helped a wild and beautiful creature return to where it belonged. "Let's go, son," his father said softly. "It's time." The summer had been hot and dry, the grass in the meadows scorched, and the streams ran low. The Sobolevs spent their days with their usual routines, fishing, checking traps, gathering firewood for the winter. Alexei stayed with his father. His mother, who had initially protested, eventually agreed, but only on the condition that her son study well at the village school and come to visit her on holidays. "A true taiga man is growing up," Grigory said proudly, watching how deftly Lyoshka handled the axe or the rifle. "A real Sobolev." And although life had settled into a rhythm, they often remembered the wolf. They would listen for distant howls in the northern hills and scan the forest thickets, hoping to spot that familiar gray silhouette. But Gray never returned. He had found his pack, his wild fate. That's how it was meant to be. In early October, the first frost struck. Morning hoarfrost silvered the grass, and a thin crust of ice covered the puddles. On one such day, Grigory decided to check the distant traps. The evening before, he packed his backpack and cleaned his rifle. "What about me?" Lyoshka asked. "You've got school," his father replied strictly. "No skipping classes. But tomorrow is Saturday. Even so, I have to leave before dawn to return by nightfall. It's a long way." Lyoshka pouted but didn't argue. School was part of the agreement with his mother, and he kept his word, studied diligently and never skipped class. In the morning, as Grigory was getting ready to leave, Alexei woke up. "Dad, maybe you could take me after all?" His father smiled, looking at his sleepy boy. "Next time, son. I have to cross the Studianea, and the ice hasn't fully set yet. It's dangerous. If I avoid the ice, I'll have to take a big detour. I won't make it back before dark. I promise, next time." Lyoshka sighed but nodded. "Just be careful out there." Grigory smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "I'll be back, we'll make fish soup. Catch some perch for my return." He slung the backpack over his shoulder, grabbed the rifle, and stepped out into the misty October morning. The Studianea River in October is dangerous. During the day, the sun still warms it slightly, softening the ice, but at night the frost binds the water with a thin, deceptively strong crust. Grigory knew this but decided to take the risk. Avoiding the river meant losing 3 to 4 hours, and he still had to reach the traps and return. He approached the shore, inspecting the ice. It looked solid. Sobolev threw a stone, it bounced with a dull thud. Seemed okay. Grigory stepped cautiously onto the ice, testing its strength. He took a few careful steps forward. Another step. Then another. He heard the crack when he was already halfway across. Not loud, but clear. His heart dropped. Just hold, he thought. He took one more step, and the ice gave way beneath him. Icy water closed over his head, knocking the air from his lungs. The heavy backpack pulled him down. The rifle slipped from his hands. Grigory surged upward, breaking the surface, gasping for air. He grabbed at the edge of the ice, but it crumbled beneath his fingers, breaking into chunks. Lyoshka, he thought in panic, what will he do alone? The cold froze his limbs. His hands grew numb. With each attempt to climb out, his strength faded. Soon, there would be none left. At one point, Grigory nearly gave up. He stopped struggling, just clung to the edge, feeling his fingers weaken. And then, on the shore, a flash of gray. Large. Swift. It raced toward the hole in the ice where the man flailed. A wolf. A huge, gray wolf with yellow eyes. Gray. Grigory rasped with the last of his strength. It couldn't be. The beast crept to the edge of the ice hole, flattening itself, muzzle stretched out, almost touching the man. Sobolev grabbed hold of the thick fur on its scruff. The wolf tensed and slowly crawled backward, dragging the hunter out of the freezing water. Every inch was a struggle. The ice cracked, threatening to give way under the weight of them both. But Gray, it was him, Grigory was sure, kept pulling, not giving up. When the upper half of Grigory's body was out of the water, the wolf retreated farther, giving him space to pull himself out completely. Grigory lay on the ice, trembling all over. His clothes instantly began to freeze into a crust. He had to move, but had no strength left. I'll freeze to death, flashed the thought. So stupid. But Gray wouldn't let him give up. He grabbed his collar with his teeth, tugging, forcing him to crawl toward the shore. I'm going, Sobolev mumbled with numb lips. Somehow, miraculously, they reached the bank. Grigory barely managed to stand, took a few steps, and collapsed again. I won't make it, he whispered, consciousness slipping away. I won't make it home. The wolf fussed around him, whimpering, nudging him with his snout, as if understanding the danger. But Sobolev had no strength left. The cold reached his bones, paralyzing both body and will. Gray let out a long, piercing howl, once, twice, then disappeared into the forest. He's gone, Grigory thought as darkness overtook him. Just as well. His mind flickered, returning, fading. How much time had passed? Minutes? Hours? He no longer felt the cold, on the contrary, he felt warm. A bad sign. But he had no energy left to worry. Through the fog in his mind, Grigory heard a child's voice, Dad. Dad. Where are you? Lyoshka? No, he couldn't be here. I'm here, Sobolev tried to shout, but only a hoarse croak escaped his throat. The voice came again, closer this time. Dad. And nearby, familiar whining, the crack of branches under rushing feet. God, Dad, what happened? Lyoshka was already beside him, dropping to his knees and grabbing his father's shoulders. You're soaking wet, you fell into the river. Grigory tried to answer, but his tongue wouldn't obey. He only managed a weak nod. We have to get you home, quick. Alexei looked around. I can't carry you alone. Gray, help. The wolf, who had been circling nearby, stepped closer. Together, the boy and the beast, they began lifting Grigory. Lean on me, Dad, said Lyoshka, offering his shoulder, while Gray supported him from the other side. Through a haze, Sobolev walked, leaning on his son and the wolf. His legs barely worked, but the instinct to survive drove him forward, to the house, to warmth, to life. Alexei had never imagined he could act with such calm and precision. Once they finally made it home, he immediately got to work, undressed his father, rubbed him down with alcohol, wrapped him in blankets, and set water to heat. Hot tea, he muttered, bustling by the stove. with raspberry jam and add alcohol, Grandpa said. But his hands were trembling, and the jar of jam slipped and shattered on the floor. Damn! Lyoshka sobbed as tears welled up in his eyes. Damn! He crouched down, staring at the broken glass and spreading jam. At that moment, Gray came over and whimpered softly, as if asking, "What now?" "It's okay," the boy whispered, pulling himself together. "We've got this." He fetched another jar, brewed strong tea, added jam and a little alcohol from Grandpa's stash, and gave it to his father, who was beginning to regain consciousness but still looked pale and weak. "How did you find me?" Grigory croaked when he was finally able to speak. "I didn't," Alexei shook his head. Gray did. He ran up to the house, howling, circling. I realized something was wrong and followed him. He led me straight to you. Sobolev looked at the wolf, who now lay by the stove with his head on his paws. "He saved me," he said quietly. "And brought you, too." "How did he know?" Lyoshka wondered aloud. "Maybe he was watching you, saw you crossing the river, and when you fell through." Grigory closed his eyes, remembering that moment, the icy water, the panic, and then the gray silhouette on the shore. "He pulled me out," Sobolev said, "and would have brought me home if I'd been able to walk. And when he saw I couldn't." A moment later, the wolf ran after him. Alexei patted the wolf on the head. "Good boy, Gray. A true friend." "He's repaid his debt," Grigory quietly added. "I pulled him out of an ice hole, and now he saved me. It's all fair." For 3 days, Grigory Sobolev lay in bed with fever, delirium, and weakness. Hypothermia is no joke, especially in the taiga, where the nearest hospital is hundreds of kilometers away. Alexei didn't leave his father's side for a moment. He changed compresses, cooked broth, and gave him herbal infusions using his grandfather's recipes. And all that time, Gray was with them, lying by the sick man's bed as if guarding his sleep. He only went outside when necessary, returning immediately. "Look at that," Grigory marveled when he fully regained consciousness. "It's like he understands what's happening." "He does," Alexei answered confidently. "He's smarter than some people." On the 4th day, the elder Sobolev was able to stand. He still felt weak, but the fever had broken and his appetite had returned. "Now I'll definitely recover," he said, sitting by the stove and watching his son prepare dinner. "But what should we do with the wolf?" Alexei turned around. "What do you mean?" "It's time for him to go home, to the forest, to his pack. In spring, they'll have pups, and he's still here with us." "Don't send him away, Dad," Alexei pleaded. "He'll leave when he's ready. We're not keeping him by force." And as if to confirm those words, the wolf got up, stretched, and walked to the door, looking at them meaningfully. "You want to go out?" Alexei asked, opening the door. Gray stepped into the yard. The lycus, already used to his presence, didn't even bark, just watched him cautiously. The wolf didn't return for dinner or the night. "He's gone," Grigory said. "For good now." "Maybe he'll come back," Alexei responded without much hope. "I don't think so, son. He did what he had to do, repaid his debt. Now his path lies in the taiga, with his own kind." They sat by the window for a long time, gazing into the night. Somewhere far off in the northern hills came a long, drawn-out wolf howl, then another, and a third, a whole chorus of voices that sent shivers down their spines. "Hear that?" Grigory whispered. "They're calling him. And he's answering." Indeed, among the many voices, one stood out clearly, a deep, powerful one. The voice of a leader. "Is that Gray?" Alexei asked in disbelief. It's him, his father nodded. He's returned to his own, where he belongs. Alexei leaned against his father's shoulder, listening to the distant wolf song. It felt strange, both sad and peaceful. Come visit sometimes, Gray, he whispered, looking at the night sky. Just to check in. 5 years passed since that winter. Alexei grew up and became a true man of the taiga. After finishing school, he didn't move to the city but stayed with his father in bear camp. They hunted and fished together, living a quiet forest life. Ranger Brogin had long since left the area. Rumor had it he was caught poaching and lost his position. A young forestry college graduate had taken his place, honest and capable. They never saw Gray again. Sometimes, on especially cold nights, a wolf's howl would echo from the northern hills, and among the many voices, the Sobolevs recognized one, deep and powerful, the voice of a leader. He's alive and well, Grigory would nod in satisfaction. Still leading his pack. Sometimes I feel like he watches us, Alexei once confessed. From afar. Just to make sure everything's okay. Maybe he does, his father didn't argue. A smart beast. Grateful too. Though, it's not just about gratitude. He didn't act out of obligation or debt, but out of conscience. Like a true friend. They sat on the porch, watching the setting sun paint the taiga in crimson hues. The autumn wind chased tattered clouds across the sky and rustled through the fallen leaves. You know, son, Grigory said unexpectedly, I've only just realized that on that day, it wasn't just Gray who repaid a debt. I did too. What do you mean? Alexei asked. A debt to nature, his father explained. To the taiga. It fed me all my life, sheltered me, and I only ever took from it. When I saved that wolf, for the first time, I felt I was giving something back. Returning a part of myself. And it responded in kind. Alexei nodded thoughtfully. So, we're even now? No, Grigory smiled. Now we're in alliance. And that's how it should be, as long as we live by conscience. Take only what we need, and give back when we can. At that moment, a lone wolf howl rang out from the distant hills, deep, powerful, unmistakable, as if to affirm the man's words. Hear that? Grigory asked quietly. Gray agrees with us. I hear it, Alexei nodded. And I always will. Thank you for watching. What do you think of this story? Share your thoughts, your comment means a lot to us.